name's Liz, I'm the baker that sews. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you are a subscriber. As always, it's really lovely to have you here as I share my sewing journey. So welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be kind of like a sew along kind of tutorial on how I hacked the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan into a maxi dress with all these amazing gorgeous ruffles. So I've got the pattern pieces in front of me that I drafted to create the ruffles and also the maxi skirt with the ruffle on the bottom. That's 4 measurements that fit my body, and I'll tell you what size pearl cardigan I cut out as well. You do need the pearl cardigan pattern or a pattern that's a wrap cardigan for this hack. So I started off with the pearl cardigan on top, and then I've hacked it to create a maxi skirt on the bottom, so it's a wrap dress. So if I stand up, you'll be able to see. So the top half is the pearl cardigan, and then I've just hacked it to have this ruffle that starts here at the waist and it goes all the way across the shoulder, and it's a dropped shoulder, and then all the way around the back. And that's the same obviously for both sides. So you end up with this piece that looks like this, and it's sort of caught on the side seams, and I'll show you how to do that when I get to that point of sewing. And then you've got the skirt. If I stand up so you can see, so it's a maxi length skirt, and it's got this gorgeous ruffle, and I've got tights on underneath, but it's a wrap skirt. So it encloses here at the side, and then obviously it goes all the way around the back and then round the front. And then I've got the ties that you normally have with the pearl cardigan that bring it in at the waist, and it creates this wrap that you get from the cardigan, but then you also get that wrap detail in the dress part as well. So I've got all my pattern pieces in my little Ziploc bag. This is what I use to store a lot of my patterns, and also if I've cut out a garment, I'll pop all the pieces in here and it zips up nice. These are A3 size. I got mine from Amazon. I'll link them down below, but you can get them from lots of different stationery shops. So let's start with the actual pearl cardigan pattern, and I've got it here. So this is the pattern. It's the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan, and it is a wrap cardigan, and you can either do just regular long sleeves, you can do short sleeves, or you can do the balloon sleeve, and that's what I've done with this version. So I've got the balloon sleeves, I've got the ruffle, and then I've got the ruffle on the hem of the skirt as well. So very voluminous and lots of ruffles, which is exactly what I love. And I felt really inspired after seeing a couple of maxi dresses on Pinterest and also on Instagram, but I couldn't find a pattern for them. And I just wondered whether, because I love a wrap dress and I love the Friday Pattern Company Westcliff dress, which is a faux wrap dress. So I just started to think about whether I could hack the pearl cardigan to add the ruffles and also create that maxi skirt as well. So that's the original cardigan pattern, and it comes in sizes UK 6 to UK 34, and I've just got the sizes in front of me. So in terms of sizes for the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan, it comes in sizes UK 6 to UK 34. So for a UK 6, it's a bust measurement of 30 inches, a waist measurement of 24 inches, and a hip measurement of 33 inches. And then for a UK 34, it's a 56 inch high bust measurement, 60 inch bust measurement, and 53 inch waist measurement. I absolutely love the pearl. I think it's a really comfortable, cozy cardigan, and I've sewn up 2 versions of just the plain cardigan, and then I sewed up my hack version. And then today I'm going to be filming me sewing up a maxi dress hack of the pearl cardigan using some fabric that I got from Abercon Fabrics, which I'll share in a second. So in terms of fabric recommendations, they recommend medium weight drapey knit fabrics, which with at least 20% stretch, like a sweater knit, a jacquard knit, stretch velvet, ponte, interlock, and a lighter weight French terry. I think this was, I feel like it's a cotton jersey. I got it from Fabricland, so I can't exactly remember the composition, but it's fairly lightweight, but it works really nicely for the maxi dress. The fabric that I've got from Abercon's I'll just grab. So I'm going to be using this, in my last Sunday sewing catch up I said it was a cotton jersey, but it's actually a polyester jersey, so apologies for that. So polyester jersey is described as a organic cotton, Ecotex 100. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I never know how to say the Ecotex. But I've got 3 meters, and you do need quite a lot of fabric to make the hack of the pearl cardigan. So I would recommend that you get 3 meters of your jersey fabric, whichever fabric you want to use. It's better that your fabric has got a little bit of drape, so you get that gorgeous ruffly drape like I've got here. So it's better if your fabric's a little bit more lightweight, and that's what this fabric is like. So this is what I'm going to be sewing it up using. So in order to hack the pearl cardigan into the maxi dress, there's a couple of pattern pieces that you're going to need to draft yourself, or you could just look at your patterns that you've got in your stash, because you might have some pattern pieces you can borrow from other patterns. I have drafted my own pattern pieces and they're all here. I'm going to talk you through the measurements and I'll show you what they look like, and hopefully it'll make sense enough for you to be able to copy. I'll also make a note of all of the measurements in the description down below, so you can go and have a look at those once the video is finished, and go and draft your own pattern pieces. You need all of the pattern pieces that the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan comes with. And it's up to you whether you do the ruffle, and I'll show you how to draft the pattern piece for the ruffle. I've done balloon sleeves for this version, and the version that I'm sewing up in this video is also balloon sleeves, but they've also got just a regular sleeve pattern piece as well. So you need all of the pattern pieces, cut them out as per pattern instructions. The only pattern piece that we're going to adjust from the pearl cardigan pattern pieces is the waistband, but when I get to that in the video I'll tell you what you need to do. For now you just need to cut it out as normal, and as Tilly and the Buttons pattern suggests that you cut it out. And then I've got all the pattern pieces here. So the first one I'll start with is the ruffle pattern piece. So you've got a front ruffle and you've got a back ruffle pattern piece. You could draft two pattern pieces, they're exactly the same size. I've opted to create a front ruffle pattern piece and a back ruffle pattern piece. They're both exactly the same size, exactly the same shape. The reason I've cut out two of these is because then I've got two front ruffles, two back ruffles, and I can mark them as a front ruffle and a back ruffle. And it just means also when I'm cutting out on the fabric, I can cut out two back ruffles and two front ruffles as well. So the ruffle pattern piece is a bit of a strange shape because you do need the curve. So you can see it's straight here, but then it goes down into a slight curve, and then it's very narrow at this end. And the reason you need that is so that you don't have too much bulk on your side seam and underarm seam here. So I'll give you the measurements, but like I said, I'll put all of the measurements down below as well. It's quite a long pattern piece, and this you need 2 for the front and 2 for the back ruffle. So the measurement from the top to the bottom section here is 5.5 inches. So you need to make sure you draw a line from top to bottom that's 5.5 inches. And then from left to right, which is creating the curve, you need a measurement of 32 inches. So going from this end all the way to this end, that is 32 inches. And it's a straight line at the bottom, but the top you can see we've got that curve. And then at this end, you'll see that I've got almost like a little diagonal line that I've cut into. So this, from this top bit to the bottom, it's 1 inches. So you just need to sort of gradually create that curve towards the end of that pattern piece. So to go over those measurements again, from top to bottom, 5.5 inches. And then from this end all the way to the curve, it's 32 inches. And then once you get to the smallest part of the curve, it's 1 inch from top to bottom. And you need 2 front ruffles and you need 2 back ruffles. So those are the pattern pieces to create this gorgeous ruffle. If you decide to leave this off, then you don't need to worry about those pattern pieces. I did have a couple of comments when I shared my reel of this dress. A couple of people said that they didn't like the ruffle because it's a dropped shoulder, and that's absolutely fine. I love it, and that's one of the reasons why, one of the main reasons why I wanted to hack the pearl cardigan. I wanted to create this ruffle, and actually I've already got plans to make the pearl maxi dress without the sleeves to make it summer ready, and I'll just add the ruffles. So I've got that gorgeous dropped shoulder detail, almost reminiscent of the Cocoa Craft plum dress, which has got that dropped shoulder detail with the ruffle, and it just hides that seam. So I'm definitely going to make a version of this dress without the sleeves as well. So you need a front ruffle and a back ruffle pattern piece, and then you need to cut 2 front ruffles, 2 back ruffles. And then the next pattern pieces you need a front skirt pattern piece, a back skirt pattern piece, and then you need the ruffles. So the next pattern piece that you need to draft is a skirt pattern piece. and this is what it looks like. It's going to be a bit tricky to show you, but it has got an ever so slight curve here, and I'll give you the measurements so that you know what the size needs to be at the top and what the size needs to be at the bottom. So for the back skirt piece, you cut this pattern piece on the fold, so you only need one of these when you cut it out. If you don't have enough room on your fabric to lay it on the fold, you can cut it as two back skirt pattern pieces, and then you just join it along here where you would have it against the fold, so you would just have a seam running along there. That's absolutely fine. So in terms of measurements, you need to make sure that it is 13.5 inches going across, and then from top to bottom you need to make sure, and this is going off my height of 5'5.5", you need to make sure that it's 26 inches going from top to bottom. And then the bottom measurement, going from one side to the other, it is 16.5 inches. So just to remind you of those measurements, they'll be down below as well. At the top, you need to make sure going from one side to the other, it's 13.5 inches. Going from top to bottom, you need to make sure that it is 26 inches. And then when you get to the bottom, because it's slightly wider at the bottom, you want it to be 16.5 inches. And you need to cut one of these on the fold, and that's the back skirt. In terms of the length of this dress, if I stand up, you'll be able to see that it stops just above my ankle. So that is the length on me using that skirt measurement, and I'll give you the ruffle measurements as well when I get onto that pattern piece, and I'm 5'5.5". So here is the front skirt pattern piece. It is, again, it's got a slight curve to it on one side, and that is the side edge where you're going to attach it to the back of your skirt. So you need to make sure that you mark some notches so you remember that that is the side seam. And then the other side is quite straight because that's the front part of your skirt that you hem. So you want it to sit quite straight on the skirt. It's the same length as your back skirt pattern piece. That was 26 inches from top to bottom. You need to make sure that you cut out 2 of the front skirt pattern piece. And then there are different measurements at the top to the bottom because you have got that slight curve on the side seam. So for the top part of the skirt, it's 22.5 inches going from one side to the other. And then at the bottom of the skirt, it is 25 inches going from one side to the other. So that's your front skirt pattern piece, and you need to cut 2 of those. And then the last 2 pattern pieces, if you want to add the ruffle onto the bottom of your dress, you'll need 2 ruffle pattern pieces. You need one for the front and one for the back. So I've just got the measurements here for the back and the front ruffle pieces. They're just a rectangle, and I've just gone off the length that I wanted the dress to be. So this is what the back one looks like, and you need to make sure that you cut 2 of these because you will join it, or you could cut 1 on the fold. So in terms of measurements for this one, from top to bottom, it's 9 inches. And then from one side to the other, it's 26.5 inches. So that's your back ruffle. Either cut 1 of these on the fold or cut 2 and then have a seam line at the back. I cut 2 because I didn't have enough fabric to be able to cut this on the fold. So that's your back ruffle pattern piece. And then the final pattern piece that you need to draft is a very wide front ruffle, and you're going to cut 2 of these. So this is the pattern piece. You can see it's much larger and much longer than the back ruffle. So in terms of measurements from one side to the other, it's 41.5 inches going from one side to the other. And then from top to bottom, it's the same as the back ruffle, 9 inches from top to bottom. You need to make sure that you cut 2 of these because you're going to attach it to your front skirt pattern pieces. So that is all of the patterns that you need to make sure that you draft if you want to create a maxi dress exactly the same as what I'm wearing. So that's with the ruffle at the front and the ruffle at the back, and that's also with the skirt on and then that ruffle at the bottom, and that ruffle goes all the way around the skirt. I haven't put pockets in it because I didn't want to have pockets. As you can see with the skirt, you've got that gathering here, and then you've also got the gathering in the back. And then if I stand up and show you the ruffle, there's lots and lots of gathering in that. I really wanted lots and lots of gathering, and it's the same on the back as well. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out, and I'm really excited about taking you along as I sew up another pearl maxi dress so that hopefully you can recreate one at home as well. I need to come up with a name for it. I'm not quite sure what to call it. So if you've got suggestions on what we can name the pearl maxi dress, do let me know in the comments below. So the next part of this video is going to be me sewing it, and I'll talk through any of the bits where I had to change sewing up the pearl cardigan. I'll talk you through that, especially inserting this ruffle. I'm not going to film myself sewing it, but once I've sewn all the different bits, or if I'm clipping things into like the side seams or anything like that, I will show you how I've done it before I go off and sew it. So it will kind of be a sew along, but you won't actually see me sewing. So hopefully let's all get busy making our own pearl cardigan dresses. So I've made a start on sewing up the dress, the pearl cardigan hack. So I've followed the first instruction as per the pearl cardigan instructions by tilling the buttons, which is to attach the front bodice to the back bodice at the shoulders. And then what I'm going to do next is create the ruffle for the front and the back of the dress. On the version that I've made, I've sewn ruffles going from the waist all the way up across the shoulders and all the way down the back. So I'm going to construct the ruffle first, and then I'll clip it into place, and I'll be able to show you where you need to attach the ruffle if you're choosing to include the ruffle. So once I've done that, I'll come back and I'll show you what I mean in terms of where you need to clip it in place. Before I clip it in place, I'm going to sew it up. So I've got the front ruffle and the back ruffle pattern piece. I'm going to attach one front ruffle to the back ruffle along this seam, and then I'm going to hem the curved edge. So this curved edge, I'm going to hem that. You can see that I had to include the selvage in this. But yeah, I'm going to hem the curved edge before I create the gathering, because if you do it after you've done the gathering, it's an absolute pain to hem the ruffle. So you need to attach one front to one back, and then hem the curved part of that pattern piece, and then do the same for the other side, because you need to create two really long ruffles to go from the front to the back on both sides of your dress. So I've attached the front to the back ruffle, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlock the curved edge, and then I'm going to fold it over and hem it so that they're ready to go, and then I can create some gathering, and then I'll show you how to insert it onto the front bodice and the back bodice before we put the sleeves in. So I've got my ruffle here, and I've hemmed it, and then I have gathered it. And what you're going to do now is take your ruffle, and you're going to do right sides to the right sides of your shoulder, and you're going to match the seam. So you've got the front ruffle and the back ruffle, and you've got that seam line that goes down there. So you're going to take that seam line, and that's going to be matched up to the shoulder where your shoulders match for the front and the back bodice. And then what you need to do is, I clip things in place. I just use these little clips. So I'm going to clip that seam line. So I've got the seam of the shoulders, and then the seam of the front and the back ruffle. And then what I'm going to do is clip my ruffle all the way along the curve of the arm, and then all the way down to the bodice. And I'm going to stop about an inch from the bottom, and that just means that it's not too bulky at your waistline. So when I've done that, I'll come back and show you what that ruffle looks like on the front and the back. So you're going to go all the way from the shoulder, this is the back piece, I'm going to clip it all the way into the arm section, and then all the way down the bodice, and stop about an inch from the bottom. And then with the front bodice, we're going to do the same. We're going to go all the way along the arm, and then down the side seam, and again stop about an inch from the bottom. And I'm just going to clip that in place, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Just a little tip for when you are gathering your ruffle. I have left a couple of inches at the end of the ruffle not gathered, so it's still just very straight on both sides, and that just means when you're clipping it into sort of the lower part of your side seam, I've left an inch there, but then when you're clipping it here, it's not going to add too much bulk on that section. And then what I've done in the armhole section, so there's the curve for the armhole, where I've got all the gathers, it's going to be tricky to show you, but for the sort of curve bit here, where it has to go around that corner, I have got rid of a lot of the gathering. So here you can see it's really gathered, but for this section, I've just pulled some of that gathering away. So it almost sits pretty flat against that corner. And then you'll see I've got a teeny weeny bit of the corner section just sticking out where I've clipped the ruffle, and that will be absolutely fine because when we stitch that side seam and the armhole, that will be included in the seam allowance. So at the moment I've just clipped on the front. So if I show you, that's the front bodice for the pearl, you can see, and then I've got the ruffle clipped all the way down the side seam and then into that armhole, and then this is the shoulder, and then I'm going to clip this section going down the back, and then I'll do the same on the other side. So here is the bodice with the ruffle clipped, as you can just see. I just thought it'd be helpful for you to see what it looks like when it's clipped in place. So this is the front bodice piece, and then this is the back bodice piece here. And then I've put the ruffle all the way along the edge and clipped it in place. So it's the ruffle is right sides to right sides of the bodice. And like I said, I've left a gap at the bottom. I'll probably move that up a little bit so that there's about an inch at the bottom. And then there's an inch here, and that just stops it from being too bulky. I've clipped it in place all the way along, and then this is the arm, the sort of armhole where the sleeve is going to go in, and then it's clipped all the way down here too, so that when the sleeve goes in, the ruffle is sandwiched and you end up with a ruffle that looks like that. If you don't want to have the ruffle, then you just skip this step. But I really like the ruffle on the dropped shoulder, so that's what it's going to look like. And I'll do that on both sides. I'm halfway through clipping it on this side. I've just got this bit to clip in place all the way along the armhole bit, and then all the way down here. And I'll stop about an inch from the bottom. So I've brought it over to my sewing machine, and I just want to say that when you are attaching the ruffle to the bodice, you want to have a smaller seam allowance than what is suggested by the Tilling in the Buttons pattern. So it's normally 5/8 seam allowance, but I'm sewing it at 3/8 seam allowance. And then if I move this clip, sorry, my hand's in the way, this is the corner point where you've got the curve of the armhole. So I've put my needle down, and then I'm going to pivot that section before I attach the ruffle along here. And it just means that you get the correct seam allowance going all the way around. So I've got my needle down at the moment, and then I lift it up, and then I'll just pivot that section so that I can stay within the 3/8 seam allowance. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I have attached the ruffle. I've stitched it all the way along. If I hold it up, I've stitched it all the way along the front bodice piece and the back bodice piece. And then I just wanted to show you what I've done on one side. I've only clipped it in place because I'm not going to do it. I just had a little thought that if you wanted to sew this dress up without the sleeves, so it was a bit more summer friendly for those warmer weather days, what you could do is have it here. I've left off the sleeve, and I've just clipped it down the side, so you end up with a dropped shoulder detail with that beautiful ruffle, and then you could just miss off the sleeve. So all I've done is, if I hold it up I'll be able to show you, I have on the inside, I've pushed the ruffle inside the arm opening, and then I've just clipped down the side seam. So you would just sew that side seam, and then you could overlock the edges, and then you would end up with a bodice that looks like this. So you've got that dropped shoulder detail, and then you've got your side seam where the ruffle goes into it as well. So you could hack the bodice so that you don't have to attach the sleeve. I am going to attach the sleeve because I've cut out the pattern pieces, and that's the look that I wanted. But I just thought I'd show you another hack that you could have with the pearl cardigan, because you've added that ruffle detail. It hides that sort of arm join, if that makes sense. So that's another hack that you could go for. The rest of the pearl cardigan top section is sewn as per the instructions for now. So I'm just going to sandwich the ruffle with the sleeve pattern piece just in that arm section, the curve of the arm section. So you will have the bodice pieces, then the ruffle, and then the sleeve pattern piece. and then I'm going to sew that and then sew the side seams and the sleeve, so you'll end up with a bodice almost constructed. And then the next step will be adding the neck facing, oh it's not facing, the neckband that goes all the way down the front bodice, around the back and down the other side of the front bodice. And then the next step that's different is the waistband for the pearl cardigan, because you have to cut that slightly differently. So when I get to that step, I'll come back and I'll show you what you need to do for that step. So I thought I'd show you the next step. I've got the sleeve pattern piece here, and I've just clipped it to the armhole section of the front and back bodice. So in between, we've got the ruffle sandwiched in between. So I've got the bodice pattern piece here where it's joined at the shoulder, the sleeve on top, and then the ruffle sandwiched in between. And then I'm just going to stitch along that line, and then I'll do the same on the other side. This is what it looks like now. I've got the back bodice, the front bodice, the ruffle, and then this is the sleeve piece that I've just attached. I've just got to get rid of that thread, but you can see that the ruffle is now sandwiched in between the bodice front and back and the sleeve. And then this is just to show you, this is the arm section on the other side where I haven't got the sleeve yet. So I'm going to position the sleeve pattern piece going from here all the way along. This is where the shoulder seam is, and then all the way to the other side, and that's the only place that you clip the seam, the sleeve pattern piece into. So I'm going to lay that right sides together, because I've got the right sides of the bodice, wrong sides of the ruffle, because we've got the right sides of the ruffle against the right side of the bodice, and then the right side of the sleeve is going to go on top of here. So here's the sleeve pattern piece, and then I'm going to match up the notch. Where is it? I'm going to match up the notch here that goes with the shoulder seam notch. Where's it gone again? There. So I usually match that notch up with the shoulder seam, and then I'll clip the rest of it all the way along here and then all the way along here. Okay, so I have stitched the sleeve in place, and now I have clipped all the way along the sleeve and down the side, and then I'm going to stitch that now on both sides, and then we will have a bodice that is constructed with the ruffle going all the way along the shoulder and down the front and the back. So if I turn this round, you'll be able to see what it looks like. This is what it will look like when it's been stitched together, so you can see that ruffle. And then the next thing I need to do is attach the band that goes all the way down the front bodice and around the neck. Normally in the Tilly and the Buttons instructions you do that before you put the sleeves in, but I've just done it a different way around because I wanted to put the ruffle on the bodice. But this, I know I've got a really busy top on at the moment, but this is what you end up with it looking like. So I've got the front bodice piece that wraps across, I've got the sleeve in, and then you'll gather that into a cuff, and then you've got the ruffle that goes all the way there and all the way around the back as well. So I thought I'd come on before I go on to the next step and just update you. There's a couple of bits that I haven't filmed or shown you how to do because they're quite straightforward if you've got the pearl cardigan pattern. So I've added the cuffs to the sleeve now that I've inserted the sleeve. I actually made my cuff slightly shorter than what it's meant to be. It's meant to be sort of that size, but I found with my first pearl cardigan hack, the sleeve was quite long on me. So I've made the cuff slightly shorter. So I've just attached the cuff, and because it's a balloon sleeve, the end of the sleeve is quite gathered. And I've done the same, obviously, on the other side. Whoops, I haven't turned it actually. So there it is. And then I've also added the neckband section, so it goes all the way around the back and along the front. So I'll pop it on over the top of the dress that I'm wearing. Obviously it won't go. They're quite similar style actually. This is the Friday Pattern Company Westcliff dress that I've got on today. So you'll be able to see if I wrap it, pretty much fits that bodice actually. So if you haven't got the pearl cardigan, you could use the Friday Pattern Company Westcliff dress. It's a faux wrap dress, that one. So this is what it looks like so far. So I've got that neckband on it. I've got it's a dropped shoulder sleeve pattern, the pearl cardigan. So that's sandwiched between the bodice and the sleeve. And then the balloon sleeve is gathered into that cuff. So that's what it looks like. Whoop. That's what it looks like so far. And then it will wrap and then tie. And it's obviously going to have the skirt on as well. And the skirt's got sort of the waistband sort of section on it as well. So that's where I'm up to. So the next part of the tutorial is forming the skirt section of the pattern, and I'll make sure then I've got the bodice constructed, the skirt constructed, and then the final step will be attaching the waistband. What I'm going to do first before I sew the skirt is I've got the pearl cardigan right waist tie, which you cut on the fold. So I've got that there, so I'm just going to stitch that. And then I've got the left waist tie as well. The left waist tie is much longer than the right waist tie. And normally I'll mark on it, but it is quite obvious when you've sewn it up which is the left and which is the right, because the left is so much longer than the right side. So I've got the right waist tie here. You fold it right sides together, and then I'm going to stitch along that line and then along the longer line, and then you leave one end open so you can turn it through. And I'll do that for the right tie and I'll do that for the left tie. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how to construct the skirt part of the pattern. So there's the left tie. You can see it's quite long. And then I've got the right tie, which I haven't turned yet. And I use my Prim loop turners. I absolutely love them for doing this sort of thing because it makes it so much quicker and so much easier to turn it. So I've put the big tube in there, and then I'm going to use the bamboo stick to just push the fabric through. And there it is, it comes through the other side. It makes it so much quicker. And then what I also use the end of the bamboo to do is just push those corners so they're nice and neat. I think you're supposed to use the pointy bit to make the corners nice and neat, but I've had so many mishaps using the pointy bit where they've gone through the fabric that I prefer to use this end, and I still get that lovely neat sort of finish on the end there. So I'm going to give those a press, and then they're ready to, and then I'll show you how to construct the skirt. And I've got all the pattern pieces cut out and ready to construct the skirt. So I'm just going to put the ties to one side because we won't need those until a little bit later when we're constructing the waistband. And then I've got the skirt pattern pieces here. I have got the tissue paper on top of them, or the tracing paper on top, so it does make them a little bit crinkly just whilst I grab them, so apologies for that noise. But I've got the skirt back piece here where I've cut it on the fold, and then I'm just going to join the front pieces to the side of the back skirt. So if I unclip the back skirt pattern piece, I'll show you. So here is the back skirt pattern piece opened up. So what I'm going to do with the front pieces, I'm going to attach them to each side of the back pattern piece. I'm just going to stitch them on my machine and then overlock the seams, and then we're ready to construct the ruffle. And with the front skirt pattern pieces, I've just notched the side that we're going to join to the back skirt piece, and that just helps me remember which side I need to attach the back skirt pattern piece, because there's not a huge amount of difference between the sides. So I just want to make sure that I attach the slightly curved front pattern piece rather than the straight, because the straight is going to be the bit that sits at the front that wraps over. So I've sewn the skirt, you'll be able to see, I've just put it around myself so it's easier to see. But that's the back, and then you've got the side seams here. You can just make them out with the overlock thread. So that will be gathered, and then those sort of seam lines should sit at the side, so on your waist. And then the dress, the front skirts will wrap over. This will all be gathered, which is why it's quite tricky for me to hold up at the moment, but that will be gathered there, and then this one will wrap over as well. And then that sort of stops just below my knee. I'll stand up, I've obviously got another dress on underneath, but it stops just, my knee is here, so that stops a couple of inches below my knee. So if you only wanted to attach a gathered skirt to your pearl cardigan dress, then you could just stop here and have that as your skirt pattern piece, and then use the tutorial that I'm going to show you in a second, and then you could just add the waistband with the ties so that you can have that wrap dress just with the skirt that stops just below the knee. I really love adding that extra ruffle, and that's what I'll continue doing when I hack the pearl cardigan into this dress. So I am going to go ahead now and sort out the ruffle to attach to the bottom. You don't hem the edge of the front pattern of the skirt yet. So we don't hem this section of the skirt yet. We add the ruffle first and then hem it all together. So I'm going to construct the ruffle. So you've got the front ruffle and the back ruffle, and we're going to attach those together, gather them, and then attach them to the bottom of this skirt. A little tip that I like to do when I've got a skirt pattern piece that's as enormous as this is I'll just put a clip at the top of the skirt pattern piece, because it makes it a bit tricky when it's all attached like this and not gathered, to remember which is the top and which is the bottom. So I normally just put a little clip. You can put a little notch in if you wanted to, but I prefer to just put a little clip on the top, so I remember that that's the top part of my skirt before I attach it to the bodice. So I'm just going to grab the ruffle pattern pieces, and then I'll show you how to attach those to the skirt. So I've got my ruffle pieces here. We've got the ruffle back and we've got the ruffle front. I'm going to construct the back pattern piece first. So you will have a seam line down the back of your ruffle, and that helps you to make sure that the gathers are nice and equal on that back skirt pattern piece. So I'm going to attach those first, and then what I will do when I've done that is I'll attach one front ruffle to one side of the back ruffle and one front ruffle to the other side of the back ruffle. Very similar to the construction of the skirt, only I've chosen not to cut the ruffle on the fold. I've cut it as two pattern pieces, and that's just in case you don't have enough fabric to be able to cut the ruffle on the fold. You could omit this step of creating that seam line on your back ruffle piece by cutting it on the fold, but I didn't have enough fabric to do that. So I've cut it as two pattern pieces. I'll attach them to create one long back ruffle piece, and then we're going to attach the front ruffle pieces to either side of that. So I'll go and create the back piece, and I'll clip the front ruffle pieces so you can see what that looks like. So here is the back ruffle piece, and it's got that seam line running down the centre, and then all I've done is I've clipped the front ruffle pattern piece to one side, and then I've done the same on the other side. So I'm going to stitch those together and then overlock them, and again, like I did on the skirt, to remember the top, where the top is, I've just put a clip at the top, and then I'll gather this and attach it to the bottom of the skirt pattern piece. So I have gathered the ruffle, you can see it's here, it's all gathered. So the next job is clipping it to the bottom of the skirt. So what I will do is I'll lie the skirt down on the floor, and I'll mark out the middle of the back skirt pattern piece, and then I will line up the seam line that I've got on the back ruffle, which is here, and make sure that that matches the middle, and then I'll just evenly distribute the gathers onto the bottom of the skirt using my clips. So once I've done that, I'll come back and show you. So this is my skirt here, excuse the sunshine. This is the back skirt pattern piece. This is the front, one of the front pieces, and then this is the other front piece. And then all I've done, I'm trying to hide my feet out of view, but I've got the ruffle here laid against the bottom of the skirt, and I've just clipped it in place. And then I will stitch that in place as well, and we'll end up with a lovely ruffle at the bottom of our skirt. And here we are, I've got the ruffle attached to the bottom of the skirt. So that's the top of the skirt and that's the bottom of the skirt. So then what we need to do next is we need to hem the side of the skirt pattern piece, and then we need to hem the bottom of it as well. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to overlock it and then press it over and hem the sides of the skirt, and I'm going to do the same with the ruffle at the bottom. Okay, so I've hemmed the side of the skirt on both sides, and I've hemmed the bottom as well. So far we should have constructed the skirt completed with a ruffle, and then we should have both of our waist ties. So we've got the longer left one and the shorter right one. I think that's the right way around. And then we should have the bodice completed as well, constructed. So the next thing that we need to do is sort out the waistband and then attach that with the waist ties. So that's going to be the main change from the pearl cardigan pattern. So I'm going to talk you through how to construct your waistband. So I'm going to get the waistband pattern pieces, and then I'm going to talk you through what you need to do to construct the waistband. And then once we've done the waistband and the waist ties, you should have a completed pearl maxi dress. So I've got the back hemband here and I've got the front hemband here. So I've cut them out, and you should have cut them out as well, as per the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan instructions. So you end up with 2 of the front tie, exactly the same pattern piece as the pearl cardigan, and then 1 of the back hemband. And that's cut on the fold, so you can see it's all clipped in place at the moment. Now what we need to do is cut those 2 pattern pieces in half. I'm going to show you in a second how to do that, and what I mean, because as you can see with my version of the dress, you've got an inside waistband and you've got an outside waistband, which I know you can't see because the fabric's so busy. With the pearl cardigan pattern, let me grab the instructions. So I've got the instructions. With the pearl cardigan pattern, it tells you to fold the hem, once you've constructed it all, it tells you to fold the hemband in half lengthways. But we're not going to be folding ours in half because we're going to be using it to sandwich the bodice and the skirt and attach them together. So instead, we're going to create half the width of the waistband, but we're going to need double the amount of waistband pieces because we're going to need an outer waistband and an inner waistband, which is what I've got here. I've got the outer waistband and I've got the inner waistband, and the bodice is attached to the waistbands at the top and the skirt's attached to the waistbands at the bottom. So that's what we're going to do now with our pattern pieces. So all you need to do now with your back band, your back hemband piece, is fold it in half to get the correct width, and then you're just going to cut along that line, not the pattern piece though, because you'll probably want to keep that as a whole pattern piece. You're just going to cut along the fabric, so you'll end up with 2 back hemband pattern pieces. So if I just do that now, I'll be able to show you. So I've made a line on my band. I've made a line on my hemband pattern piece, and I'm just going to cut along that. So we've got 2. Oops. I've got 2 of the back hembands here, and then what I'm going to do is just clip those together at the fold line, because we also still need to make sure that we follow the instructions to create the little opening on one side of our wrap dress so that we can get the ties through there. So using the pattern piece, we're only going to make notches. 1 set of notches. On the pattern piece there's 2 sets of notches, because when you fold them those notches meet, but we're just going to do 1 set of notches because we're not folding it, because we've cut it in half to make 2 at the back hemband. And then you need to do exactly the same with the front hemband. So you've got 2 of these cut out already. When you cut them in half, you'll end up with 4 of the front hemband. So again, I'm just going to do exactly the same as I did for the back. I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to use that fold line as my guide for where I need to cut the front hemband. So I'm just going to do that now. You could iron it and press it so that you've got that fold line really accurate. It's worked really well for me on this fabric. The fold line has just gone in without me needing to press it. So I've literally cut across. So now I've got 2 of the front hemband here and 2 of the front hemband here. And again, like we did with the back, we're just going to mark those notches because we still need them for that side opening. So I'm just going to mark that 1 set of notches on one side of the front hemband as well. And then we're ready to construct our waistband on our dress. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you need to make sure with your front hembands and your back hembands that you follow the instructions in the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan instructions. So I've got my back waistband here. I have got seam line on mine because I couldn't cut it on the fold, but you shouldn't have that seam line because you will have cut yours on the fold. I've attached 1 of the front hembands to one side of the back hemband, and I've attached the other one to the other side. And then what you need to make sure you do is you one of the seams you will just sew from top to bottom, but the other seam you will stop where you've got your notches, and that creates the little opening that you need in order for your ties to go through. So you're going to do that twice, so you end up with two waistbands. One's going to be the outside waistband and one's going to be the inside waistband. So I've got my two waistbands constructed, one outside waistband, one inside waistband. And then what I've done on the waistband, just to make sure that the seam allowance stays in place and you get a really neat opening, is I've just top stitched it in place on either side of that seam. And I've done that on both of the waistbands. And then I also just made sure that they matched up. You want to make sure that the opening for the tie matches up. So I just held them together just to make sure that they do match up. And then the next step is attaching your ties to your waistband. So I've got my waistband here. You're going to attach the shorter right hand side waist tie, so that's here, and you're going to attach it to the right hand side of your waistband. So the right hand side is the one that's got the opening here, and you're going to do right sides to right sides, and I'm just going to stitch it in the middle because this is going to be the width of our waistband. So I'm going to put it in the middle so that when we pop the outside waistband on and we turn it all round, turn it all the way through, this will be nice and central for the tie on your dress. And then I'm going to do the same with the longer tie. I'm going to pop it on the left hand side of the waistband. So on my dress here, you can see it's nice and central for that waistband here for the tie. That's where I prefer to have it positioned. I prefer to have it central on that waistband. If you wanted to, you could have it slightly higher or you could have it slightly lower. It's entirely up to you, but I've got it placed centrally on the waistband because that's where I prefer for it to be positioned. So I'm just going to attach those, and then I'm going to talk you through how you attach the waistband to your dress and your bodice, and then we're nearly finished. So in preparation to attach the waistband to the skirt, because our skirt is enormous, we had quite wide pattern pieces which are wider than your waistband. You need to do some gather stitches along the top just to make sure that you can fit the waistband to your skirt, and that's going to create a really nice gathered skirt effect on your maxi dress. So I'm just going to gather the top of my skirt from one side to the other, and then we can attach the waistband. So the next job is attaching both of the waistbands to the skirt. That's what we're going to do first. So one is going to be your outer waistband and one is going to be your inner waistband. I'll talk you through it first, and then hopefully I'll be able to show you by filming it. So I've got my gathered skirt here, and I'm going to take my outer waistband and I'm going to attach it right sides to right sides of the skirt. And then the inner waistband, you're going to do right sides of the waistband to the wrong sides of the skirt. So the skirt will be sandwiched between both of the waistbands. So I'm going to do that and then show you what it looks like, and then we're going to attach the bodice. So I've just laid it on my bed at the moment just to show you, but this is the wrong side of the skirt, and we've got the inside waistband which is clipped. The right side of the inner waistband is touching the wrong side of the skirt. And then on the other side, I've got the outer waistband, which is clipped in place. And the right side of the outer waistband is touching the right side of the skirt. So the skirt is essentially sandwiched between the two waistbands. So these are the two waistbands, and you can just see there's the skirt with all the lovely gathering. And then we're going to sort of sew all the way along there with a 1 centimetre or a 5/8. So you can either do, I usually do a 1 centimetre just to check that it is all attached correctly. We have been sewing with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, so I do a 1 centimetre seam allowance to begin with, and then I increase it. And then the other thing to say, at the end of your skirt where you've got the waistband attached, you need to make sure, I don't know if it's going to be easy to show you, but you need to make sure that you've got the waist tie safely tucked inside, and then I have clipped it with a centimetre overhang, and that's going to allow for you, when you get to the waistband, that's going to allow you to stitch down here, and then when you turn it, you'll have a really neat line that runs all the way down the side of the skirt. So just to show you again the waistband, I just want to make sure this is really clear for you. I have got the skirt pattern piece here, and there is the edge of the skirt. I've clipped the outer waistband right sides to right sides of the skirt, and then the skirt is sandwiched in between. And then on the inside, we've got the inner waistband, which is right sides to wrong sides of the skirt. So the right sides of the waistband clipped to the wrong side of the skirt. And then, like I said, you need to make sure that you have got 1 centimetre. So here's the skirt and here's the waistband. You need to make sure that you've got at least 1 centimetre overhang, and that's just going to allow you to stitch that edge of the waistband, and when you turn it up it will sit neatly against the outside of the skirt pattern piece. And I've done that with both of the waistband pattern pieces. So I'm going to stitch that in place, or baste it with a 1 centimetre seam allowance, and then I'll come back and show you what you need to do next. So you end up with something that looks like this. You've got the outer waistband and the inner waistband, and then you've got the skirt sandwiched in between, and then we've also got the waist ties. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to join the bodice. So we're going to attach the bodice just to the outer waistband. So I'm going to do that now, and then again, like I've done with all the steps, I'll show you what that looks like. So I have clipped the bodice to the outer waistband like so. And I really love this bit because when you hold it up, you really get to see what the dress is going to start to look like. Because once we've done that, it's just a case of finishing the waistband edges and then pressing it under and stitching the inside of the waistband, and then your dress is finished. So I'm going to attach the bodice to the outer waistband now using my sewing machine, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. But you've basically taken the outer waistband and your bodice, and you've just clipped it all the way along the waistline, the waistband. So it's right sides to right sides, and I'm just going to go and stitch that in place, and then I'll show you how to finish the waistband. So just to say, when you're attaching the bodice to the waistband, the outer waistband, you need to make sure that the neck binding, keep saying neck binding, you need to make sure that the neckband goes all the way to the end of the waistband piece, because that's just going to give you a really neat edge when you enclose all of that in the waistband and then turn it all the way through. It's going to give you a really neat finish on that side. So you need to make sure that that neck band goes all the way to the end. I've got it ever so slightly longer than the waistband. So I've got the neckband here, it's going to be a bit tricky to show you, and it goes beyond the waistband there. That's just going to help you get a really neat finish when you put the waistbands together and stitch this edge before you turn that through to the inside and then top stitch that edge. It'll make sense once I've done the actual process to show you. So I've now got the bodice attached to the outer waistband, and this is what it looks like. So you've got the outer waistband, the bodice, the skirt, and then on the inside this is what it looks like as well. So you've got the waistband, that's the outer waistband, so you can see the wrong side of that, and then you've got the inner waistband. It's just a little bit loose here at the moment because it's only attached by that bottom edge. And then we're going to sandwich the we're going to put the waistbands together right sides to right sides and then turn that edge so it's nice and neat. And then we're going to turn this up. You want to press your seam allowance down and then press this down ever so slightly, and then we're going to top stitch all the way along there, and then the dress is completely finished. So the next step that we're going to do on the right side of the dress, you've got a lot of fabric at this point all sewn together, is we are going to make sure that our ties are out of the way, and we've got 2 waistbands at the moment. We've got one on the inside, one on the outside. So we're going to make sure that the edge of the waistbands is right sides together. So I'm going to fold that in on itself now, and just make sure that that's right sides together. And what I'm going to do with the inside waistband is I am going to press this edge that I am going to turn on the inside. I'm going to press that in place now, so that when I stitch the waistbands together along this edge, the seam that I want to press down to make it nice and neat on the inside is already pressed, and it will be caught when I do the stitching. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to press this edge by 1 centimetre. That's how much excess waistband we've got, and then I'll pin those together along that seam and along the other side and then stitch them in place. So I'll press that seam first, clip the sides, and I'll show you what it looks like with the sides clipped and that seam pressed, and then I'll sew them, and then I'll show you how to finish it. Okay, I have pressed the seam on the inside waistband. There's just an ever so slight, I don't know if you can see, but there's an ever so slight sort of crease fold line there where I've pressed it, and then I've pressed as best as I can. They don't want to stay down, but I've pressed the seams down here so that when that comes up like that, it should enclose those seams really neatly, and we'll end up with the inside of the dress that looks like that. So it'll look really lovely. And then on the edges of the waistband, I've just pressed the waistbands together, right sides together, sandwiched those ties on the inside, and then I'm just going to stitch that edge here, this edge, with a 1 centimetre seam allowance, because that's how much I left the waistband overhanging. And I'll do the same on the other side. I'll stitch that with a 1 centimetre seam allowance, make sure that the waist tie is out of the way, and then turn that. I'll probably use a one of my Prim loop turner bamboo sticks just to push that corner so it's nice and neat. And then the final job will be top stitching the waistband on the inside, making sure that it's all nice and neat and all the seams are enclosed, and then the dress is finished. So I'm going to go and stitch the edges of the waistband, and I'll push them through, make sure that they're nice and neat with the corners. I'll have to pin the waistband on the inside because clips won't work, but I'll pin the waistband on the inside before I start to top stitch it, and I'll show you what that looks like before we finish our final step of sewing up the pearl cardigan maxi dress. So I finished that edge, and now you can see that we've got the inside waistband in place on the inside, and then I just need to pin this edge in place because it's still open. On the other side, I've got it really lovely and neat. If I hold it up, you'll be able to see there's the tie, and then that's the waistband here, that's the edge of the skirt, and then there's the bodice, and it's looking lovely and neat. So final job, and then we'll have our maxi dress completely finished, is just pinning that edge in place, making sure that it's nice and neat and it's hiding all of those seams on the inside. You just need to make sure that your waistband, and it should match up because you've been checking all the way along, but just make sure that it matches up where you've got that hole to bring the ties through. So final step, just realised my hair's a mess. So final step, and then we'll have a completed pearl maxi dress, which is exciting. So I'm going to pin that in place, show you what it looks like, and then the next time I come back, once I've shown you what that looks like, I'll have the dress on to show you what the pearl maxi dress looks like finished. So I have pinned the waistband in place on the inside there, and then what I'll do is I'll transfer those pins to the outside so I can make sure that I get a really neat finish going along the top of that waistband. This is my preferred method for finishing the dress. You can also slip stitch if you don't want the stitches visible on the other side. You can stitch in the ditch if you want to as well. I'm just going to do a really small zigzag stitch, and I'll probably zigzag stitch all the way around the waistband. That's the way that I've chosen to finish this dress, but obviously you can finish it in whatever way you want to. So the next video will be of me wearing the finished dress and just showing you some of the details that I absolutely love about this dress. So here is the finished dress. I will put in some photos and some video footage of me wearing the dress as well, but I'm really pleased with how it's finished. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. I've got that gorgeous ruffle, which I absolutely love, going all the way from the side seam up over my shoulder and round the other side, and that's what it looks like. And it's the same on the other side. We've got the neckband. You've got the hemband in place, it's just tied at the side. Then I've got the lovely skirt all the way round, and then we've got the ruffle on the bottom. So there we go, finished pearl maxi dress. I really hope that you enjoyed the sew along or tutorial. I'm not quite sure what to call it because I haven't shown you exactly all of the steps step by step, but I've just talked through how I hacked the pattern to create a maxi dress. I'm definitely going to sew up another version, but my next version I'm going to get rid of the sleeves and I'm just going to have this ruffle. I think I'm going to try that next to create more of like a lighter weight summer dress for when the weather's really warm. This would be perfect for spring because it's not quite warm enough yet for no sleeves. And I'll share that over on Instagram when I actually get that finished. I need to cut it out, but I'm definitely going to try one without the sleeves as well. But I hope this made sense. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I hacked the pearl cardigan pattern to create a maxi dress. And I'd love you to tag me on Instagram if you do follow this tutorial to make your own pearl cardigan maxi dress. I'd love to see your versions as well. If you've got any questions, please let me know in the comments below, or send me a DM over on Instagram. I find it much easier to reply to messages over on Instagram just because I've got so many comments to reply to on YouTube. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, it'd be great if you could hit that subscribe button. You'll get notified of when I bring out my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll be back soon with another video. Bye.